I haven't ever exactly been consistent when it comes to video output. I'll often make like 3 to 5 videos in a straight row, then slither back into radio silence for a couple of months before giving any further signs of life. There's a lot of reasons for that, but what it comes down to is varied interests. I've tried my hand at fanfiction, art, ask blogs, web novels, regular novels, fan comics, essays, scientific papers, D&D, card games. Basically, I have no focus. However, that will never stop me from trying to give you something worthwhile when I actually do get down and work on this channel. Here's a Patreon-sponsored video. As some of you might know, I tend to get a lot of questions regarding my reading of the lore and the characters of the Persona games on my Tumblr blog. Yeah, I still have one of those. Well, this morning, after about 2 months of radio silence, again, my channel is not the only place where I pull these disappearing acts, I decided to get down and clear out my inbox by replying to the many, mostly Persona-related questions that have gathered in it. I am now going to read out some of these questions, as well as my answers to them. It's going to be a fun ride. We'll learn, we'll laugh, we'll cry, well actually hopefully not that part, and then at the end of it all, I'll give you all a special yet unreleased Persona lore related question, as well as my answer to it, sent to me by one of my current top Patreons, Stupin9. Sounds good? Good. Now, without any further ado, be welcome to Ask Neni Volume 2, Return of the Matter. Alright, let's see what we got here. Okay, that one isn't really lore. Ah, there we got it. Miss Tech Master asks, Adachi and Mary's Arcana in Persona for the Golden are Hunger, Lust, and Eon respectively. In future installments of Persona, the Personas associated with them, Magatsu-Izanagi and Kaguya, are of the Tower and Moon Arcana respectively. I was wondering if these two Arcana fit those two characters just as well as their Golden Arcana. Now this is a sort of question I get quite a lot. People asking me about Arcana alignments, if they fit, if they don't, obviously because I've kind of made my channel into the resident Arcana channel, even with my slow updates. So yeah, here's my reply to it. Arcana placements are always a fluent thing, since Arcana aren't some kind of type indicator or personality test in Persona, unlike what most people take them as. They're archetypes of human life, and archetypes combine, overlap, refer to each other, etc, etc. Hence, one Persona fitting in more than one Arcana is far from a weird thing. Magatsu-Izanagi is an odd case to begin with, since he's not actually a figure in Japanese mythology in its own right, but just an emphasis of a specific aspect of another figure. Magatsu is an untranslatable old Japanese word which carries such connotations as chaos, calamity, decay, and evil. Basically, it's a mythological term that carries with it the connotations of everything that's wrong and opposite towards pure and holy. The idea behind this is that, like you, Adachi's persona is also Izanagi, but it's an Izanagi whose portrayal follows the negative interpretation of the myth. An Izanagi who's not being read as a hero and father to the Japanese nation, but as a selfish prick who doomed all of humanity with his childish whims. This interpretation of Izanagi slots him into several prevalent storytelling archetypes, most of them villainous. And these archetypes could be represented by a lot of different arcana. It fits the Fool and Chester because, evil as they are, Izanagi's actions are still incredibly human and driven by the human ability to direct the path of their own story as the protagonist. He just happened to drive a story right off the cliff portrayed on the card. It suits the Lust because it's an archetype of reverse strength, the hero failing to channel their passion into courage and perseverance, and instead being driven by their momentary whims and superficial desires, again, right off a cliff. And finally, it also suits the Tower Arcana. The Tower is the Tower of Babel, a testimony to human ego and arrogance causing their calamity and the catastrophe. Izanagi's childish, arrogant actions caused the failure of his mission and his marriage, as well as Izanami's curse. In that way, all three of these arcana represent the myth quite well. Kaguya is a bit simpler. Her story is one of the most famous and straightforward fairy tales in Japanese lore, as well as the oldest known Japanese novel, period. She is an exiled celestial from the moon who incarnated into a human form and, haughty because she understood her origins, rejected all her human suitors, awaiting for her sentence to expire and for herself to be restored back to her celestial, emotionless glory. However, she ended up falling in love with the Emperor just before she was retrieved, and had to leave behind and forget her love, only giving him the elixir of eternal life as a parting gift, which he promptly threw into the Fuji volcano, turning it eternal. Kaguya reflects the Aeon/Judgment Arcana in that at the moment she was taken away, Kaguya had to look back and evaluate her own life, her choices, her feelings, her mistakes and her love. It was the last thing she could do in her human form and was what led her to leave the Emperor a gift before vanishing. Judgment/Aeon is all about looking back and evaluating yourself to free yourself of your regrets, or be trapped by them forever. As for the Moon Arcana, well, aside from the obvious fact that Kaguya is, well, an alien from the Moon Arcana is related to creativity, dreams, fantasy, and the unconscious and unreal, all things that encapsulate Kaguya's ethereal existence as a celestial being very well. To the humans around her, she is like a dream come true, and just like a dream, she vanishes and fades away. Okay, that was a longer one. Now let's try and find another one. Oh yeah, there's this one. Yeah, let's go for this. Mega Shadow Dragon asks, what reverse tarot do the Persona 5 main targets represent, as well as the targets you have to go after in order to be able to move forward in a confidant? What? Have you counted how many characters that... Let me just check. I mean, I hate the Mega 10 wiki, but let's just take a look and see how many characters that would be, just so you get an idea of what exactly you're asking me. And here we have the Persona 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, probably like 13 people. People, please, limit your expectations. I am one person, and I write these answers in one sitting. You're keeping me from doing anything else with my day by putting this into just one question. Maybe split your questions up a little, just saying. As I've just said in my previous post, Arcana are not a clear-cut thing, so I could probably give a million different, equally valid answers to this one question, especially because there are so many targets and side quests you go after in Persona 5. In order to restrain myself, I'll limit myself to the main dungeon bosses. Again, these are just my personal take. There are many, many other equally valid assignments that one can make. Kamoshida I would probably put under reverse strength, since his issues have to do with his failure of maintaining perseverance and giving into material desires instead. Madoram is a bit harder since so much different BS comes together with what he's done, but reverse Emperor might suit him well, since he styled himself a fatherly wise figure who gives order to the chaos of emotions in his art, but actually just forcefully endows himself with the fruits of others' labor like a cruel king would. Kaneshiro, devil. He's chained himself to material worth and desires because he can't find it in him to believe in anything beyond that. He's entered into a bondage with the material world that causes him to exploit said world in any way he can, neglecting anything beyond that, including other people's needs. Shadow Futaba is obvious because, well, she becomes an armored persona once turned upright, but as for her spawn, the cognitive Wakaba, probably either the reverse Empress or the reverse Moon. The former because she's a cruel, chaotic, punishing mother figure, the second because she embodies Futaba's beginning insanity and her delusions. Incidentally, Empress and Moon are cards that are often related to one another, precisely because of how likely these things are to cross over. With Okumura, I'd say a reverse chariot, since his issues are driven by misguided, overdriven ambition that cause him to lose sight of everything other than his goals, regardless of consequences. Sae was probably meant to be taken as a reverse judgment. In order to have no regrets regarding her place in the world, she resorted to being ruthless and even cheating, because her self-reflection was too focused on the possibility of failure, even if it wouldn't be her own fault, to the point she tried to eliminate said possibility at all cost. Shido? Obviously Tower. His ego is off the charts. His plans would cause calamity even if, or especially if, everything went as he wanted it to. He's an harbinger of doom by arrogance, not only for himself, but also for the people who vote for him. Whew, that was already pretty much, even though I limited it. Whoa. Okay, let's continue on. What can we go for next? Oh, this is one that's not Arcana related. Okay, let's go. Mega Shadow Dragon, who asked quite a bit, asked the question, Yaldabaoth, who is also called the Demiurge, is referred to as Samael, which is what Shido's shadow turns into. Yaldabaoth is frequently called the Lion-Faced, Leontoades. She, kanji here, means lion, and the, kanji here, can compose the phrase related to child. Yeah, that is all trivia that I am at least tangentially aware of, especially with the kanji. And what are your thoughts on how Todanosuke Yoshida's name references tigers, while Shido's references lions? So this is actually more of a I don't know, trivia discussion than an actual question, so I guess you already learned something here. But yeah, let's move on to my reply. I think it's a neat bit of trivia that shows how much effort the devs put into crafting the game's universe. I really appreciate wordplay like this, especially in Japanese media, since there's so much meaning you can package into it. That said, the lion in Japanese folklore is seen as a guardian of holy places, so I'm not sure if this was supposed to hint at him being the last obstacle before getting to Yaldabaoth, or if it's just meant to heighten the contrast between him and Yoshida, additionally to creating a direct connection to Yaldabaoth via the latest lore. It's definitely fascinating, however. Okay, that was a shorter one, now let's move on. Mistech Master asks, do you think the Sun and Moon Arcana actually fit Sho and Minazuki, or did they just do it because lol opposites? I mean, I've looked up meanings of the Sun Arcana and none of them make me think of Sho. Or at very least, maybe the Moon Arcana fits the new merged Sho in Ultimax True Ending. I just want to know what his actual connection, if he has any, to the Arcana he has is. Okay, so this is an interesting one because this is actually something I thought about when I first played the game in the arcades and had my own questions about, so I had a few thoughts that I could share immediately. I think what's worth mentioning here is that some tarot decks actually place the Fool right after the Judgment or the Sun. The reason for that is, you've seen the goal of the journey, you were headed right for it, it was right in front of you, and you screwed it up, and are right back at the start. Good grief! I think that's the sort of interpretation they went with for Sho. Sho thinks he's found the goal of his journey. He thinks he's seen the light at the end of the tunnel, the end of his suffering, and is marching right towards it, full of optimism and confident hope, hands outstretched, only to realize, oops, no, actually this wasn't it at all, and to be thrown right back to the start. To the Fool. That's probably the justification for his relation to the Sun Arcana. He's a reversed sun. His childish but wholehearted optimism for the outcome of his journey was bound to fail, for the time being. As for Minazuki and the Moon, I've talked about this in the past, but Minazuki was pretty clearly born out of Sho's shadow, and is thus a soul made of his fantasies, his deepest insecurities, the things he feels when he sleeps at night. All of this is represented by the Moon Arcana. So yes, I do think there's a rationale behind the Arcana placement beyond just lol opposites. What about when he merges with Minazuki at the end, when he's sort of mellowed out? Does he fit the Moon Arcana as he now has Tsukuyomi? We don't see enough of him to say that. I know that he fits the Fool Arcana at the end as a more complete, balanced person. But Moon. We don't see enough of him to say anything about that, I'm sorry. Skyflying in Action asks, I'm pretty much confused by Yukari's attitude towards Mitsuru in the beginning of the game. Do you know what that is? Yeah, this is actually a question of character development and probably explains a few of the reasons why people find Yukari so annoying, but I actually find it pretty cool how Persona 3 handles this, so here comes my answer. Yukari hates the Kiricho group for being so secretive about the circumstances of her father's death, and has been dabbling in conspiracy theories about this for years now. Mitsuru to her just represents everything she finds wrong with that company and organization. She's secretive, has an air of untouchable authority to her, gives orders without explaining her full rationale behind them, and tells half-truths, opting to give the full truth later when it might possibly be too late. Yukari loathes all of that. It is the sort of haughty corporate behavior she feels that cost her father his life. It's only when she gets to see Mitsuru as a human with emotions, rather than an agent of a soulless corporation, that the two of them can genuinely become friends. Heroic Half-Blood. What? Oh, Heroic Half-Blood, I'm sorry, asks, do you think there's any connection between Nyx from Persona 1 and Nyx from Persona 3? Sorry if this is a silly question, it's not. I am just wondering what your opinion on the matter is. So, this is a simple one, so there's a quick answer. Given that the Persona 3 clubbook uses a picture of the Night Queen from Persona 1, aka Nyx, to represent humanity's awareness of Nyx's presence, I'm pretty sure that the implication is that Persona 1's Nyx is the goddess born from humanity's subconscious awareness that the real Nyx exists. Sort of a proxy for her, another sort of avatar. Oh, and if I remember right, there was, oh yeah, there was an answer to this question in here. Shock Stuff asks, kind of humanity's cognition of Nyx as opposed to the real Nyx to involve some Persona 5 stuff, to which I would say, yes, that interpretation is quite valid. This is, you can see the Nyx in Persona 1 as humanity's cognition of the real Nyx. A god is born from humanity's cognition of the real Nyx. Kind of like how the cognitive Wakaba in Futaba's palace was a shadow born of Futaba's cognition of the real Wakaba. Ah, this is like a more fun thing. Skyflying in Action asks, excuse me, but can you please give me the kanji for the names of your Persona protagonists? I know one of them is Kozuki Ayami. Can you tell me the rest with the kanji? So basically this is a question about what I named the protagonists of the Persona games when I played the games for the first time myself. So here's the list of what I named them. For Persona 1 I went with Naoya Todo, which is just what he's called in the manga, so I wasn't especially creative there. With Persona 2 Innocent Sin, I went with Tatsuya Suo, which, yes, he is Tatsuya Suo. Interesting. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, you play as Maya Amano. I asked, can you even name her? A person in the comments, like an old friend of mine who knows a lot about Maya, says, I don't think you can name Maya, so I'll trust that judgment. I don't think you can name Maya either. Now we get to the actual names where I put some semblance of effort in. For the Persona 3 female route, that was actually the first route I went for when I played Persona 3, because I first played it as the portable version. I went for Kozuki Ayami. That was because when this starting scene began with this huge, gigantic moon on the green background, and then Pharaohs asked me to give like a name, I was like, what is the first thing that comes to me? A bright moon, light moon, and then I was like, and this was in a dark background, so I guess something with Yami, so Ayami, and that's what I went with, and that was the name of my female protagonist. And then when I started the second file with a male protagonist, I was like, I named her Ayami, and he is like sort of kind of opposite, so something that means bright, makey. Okay. My utmost creativity continues on to Persona 4, where I named my protagonist Tadashi Funato, which is just the first and the last kanji in Izanagi's name used as names because I am smart. And then for Personas 5 I went with Sho Minazuki because memes, because Neo Jeff fake leaks. I felt so good about that one. Moving on, we're approaching the end. Hirikiko Diary asks, so like I've seen the post that Kanami has persona potential now. I don't remember making that post, oh my god. But in the case she can summon it, what do you think it will be like? We have the Arcana and all, but I can't think of a possible figure and design who'd parallel and match Kanami herself. And to this I posted an old fan art I'd made, which I came up with when I asked myself that same question, and I captioned said fan art with, here's a design I sketched up years ago. Back then I decided that Kanami's persona would be Mikuratana because, well, there is a reason that goddess latched onto her. She does suit her pretty well. I also see it kind of similar to how Yu's persona was Izanagi after he met, like, unintentionally came into contact with Izanami. So there's sort of this theme there. She does suit her pretty well with her fear of rejection while desperately desiring lasting social connections. Hence why the persona is a mess of weapons. Also I like weapons. If I were to redo this design today, it would look very different though. Okay, so much for that. And this is not Persona, this is Kingdom Hearts. We can skip this, and I think this is Tangent Jelly Persona, but what is there even to read out here? I guess I'm just gonna show you this one and let you judge my Persona designing skills for Steven Universe main characters. Let you judge that for yourself. So, and now we're headed for the big finale, the thing we're actually here for, the thing that I'm actually making this video for. The question by the only one, the remarkable, the supportive, Dupin9. I'm not actually doing this bit. I was asking you if you could do a Neni Replies number 2. Here we are. My question was if Erebus from the answer can be interpreted as a representation of the reversed World Arcana. And there's a second question that came to me. Would it be possible to use an alternative Arcana for Izanami in Persona 4 if they actually were to give her a social link? Hey Dupin, you who I am eternally grateful for your amazing support. I mean this, honestly, this is... I never thought anybody would actually go for this tier, this is kind of badass. Sorry for the wait, by the way. Answering your questions, I'd like to first remark that I am very happy with how you've worded that first question. Had you asked if Erebus is the World Arcana, things would have gotten weird, because, as I've explained earlier, Arcana and a scheme that you can sort things into. However, asking if Erebus can be seen as a representation of the World Arcana in its reversed state? Now, that's a far more interesting question. Viewers of this channel know that I've not shied away from assigning deities with specific arcana before. Yaldabaoth was slapped on with the reverse Hierophant label pretty heavily in one of my previous videos. Now, as for Erebus though, it's not quite as clear-cut here. Going by the mythology, Erebus is one of the primordial deities, the oldest to be born, even before the Titans and the Olympians were made. Unlike these more humanoid, later deities, the primordial deities are rather rough personifications of very basic, universal concepts. In Erebus's case, that concept would be darkness.
Darkness, even in the darkest darkness. Darkness. Darkness.
Which is nicely reflected in Persona 3 FES's boss theme music for Erebus, which is fittingly titled
Darkness.
Erebus is also what the Greek called the place of absolute darkness, which dead souls had to pass through before getting to Hades. the place Hades, not the deity personifying said place. Fittingly enough, Persona 3's take on the deity is played as a demon representing what might just be the deepest darkness threatening humanity's life on Earth within the context of the games, the collective desire for death, shared among all of humankind. The desire of life to end itself. The representation of the very primal energy which Freud called Destrudo, and of what Persona 3's clubbook, yes, that thing again, called humanity's shadow's innate desire to reunite as one in Nyx's soul. This is why, according to the game's lore, Erebus must never come into contact with Nyx, because if he were to do so, he would create a gateway for the shadows of all living beings on Earth to instantly unite with Nyx's body and the moon, causing a successful instance of the fall and thus the decay and death of all terrestrial life. So much for a primer on Erebus' role and significance in the series, but in how far does any of that relate to the World Arcana? Honestly, while I do think one could find a way to relate Erebus to the Arcana, I think it would require a bit of a stretch. The Vault is a card mostly related to finding your place and role in life, and reaching a state of self-realization and contentment in it. Erebus, on the other hand, has not so much to do with any of that, lacking much of any sense of self to begin with. This demon actually represents a desire that would keep the people of Earth from ever reaching any sort of self-realization. Period. So it's not even that he represents a reversed version of the Arcana, it's just broken. Now, if I had to assign Erebus with any Arcana, I would probably go with, surprise surprise, number 13, Death. Because while death does not usually stand for a direct physical death, in its reversed form, it does stand for a spiritual dead end, in which all further progress is rejected or resisted, the mind instead getting stuck in a sort of an urge of grief, like depression or anxiety. This reverse reading of the card actually does fit what Erebus represents rather well. For that reason, I'd say that, interestingly, he fits the Death Arcana perhaps better than any other boss in Persona 3. Yes, that includes the actual Death Shadow. Now, as for your second question, we move on to Izanami, and your question for an alternate Arcana for her. I assume you're referring here to the cut dialogue strings in Persona 4 Data that reveal that Izanami was originally supposed to fill the role of the Empress Arcana social link, rather than Margaret, which makes sense as Izanami is a mother goddess, in Persona specifically she is the wish-granting mother, and motherhood is one of the great themes of the Empress Arcana. Now, if the social link idea were to be revived and restored in a future re-release of the game, we all know it's inevitable, you guys. What alternate names could be used for the Empress Arcana in order to eliminate the conflict with Margaret's social link? Well, initially, our search looks pretty fruitless. Unlike Strength, Judgment, and the World, the Empress doesn't have an alternate name in the Thoth Tarot deck. And Japanese Wikipedia's list of common alternate names for the Arcana lists weirdness such as Iris Revealed and Venus, which obviously don't work very well for... Oh! What's this? Daichi? The Earth? Of course! The Earth! Gaia, one of the figures most commonly associated with the Empress portrayed on the Arcana, is thought to be the personification of Mother Earth itself. So why not go for that? Dear viewers, I present my solution. Izanami's social link Arcana is the Earth, an alternate of the Empress. Now you may say, but isn't this name way too easily confused with the World? To which I say, all the better! If Izanami no Okami and her 1,000 curses represent the Earth, then Izanagi no Okami and his myriad truths represent the world. It fits! The symbolism and contrast are maintained! Yes, you can probably tell I'm way too proud of that one. Actually, before I go, let me just say that I'm super stoked for everyone who's still here and still supporting me, even through all my shenanigans. That said, I've noticed that some people do not seem to realize that my Patreon does in fact not charge monthly. I've set it to only charge when I actually put out substantial video content in a month. So if I happen to ever go on another one of these 3-month hiatuses, which is very likely, there's really no detriment to you guys. I will never charge you for something I didn't deliver. That is my promise to you. If you decide to support me, that is. However, if you're more of a fan of one-time donations, I also have a Ko-fi which you can use to access my PayPal. In case you're interested, I'm planning on offering drawing commissions soon, so if you'd like to have something drawn by me and a speed draw of that up on the channel, that is going to be an option pretty soon. So, well, consider it, and until next time, see ya!